We want to introduce to you something that we call the food funnel, which really is just taking the minimal effective dose principle and applying it to measuring the food that you're eating. So, I want you to envision a funnel that's super wide at the top and it gets narrower and narrower as you get down to the bottom. When we talk to people about measuring their food, about being conscious of the amount of food that they're eating, people automatically jump to weighing and measuring and tracking it in an app on the computer or on your phone. And for most of us, that's not really necessary straight off the bat. And for some people, it can be really confusing and intimidating. So instead, what we'd like to do first is just to ask you to either write it down, so use a written food log, just a simple piece of paper, even a composition notebook, or the notes section on your phone or your iPad, or since all of us have our phones all of the time and we never put them down, snapping a picture of what you eat every single time. You don't have to put it on Instagram, but if you want to, extra bonus points, right? So that first top layer is really simple. Write it down or take a picture.
So I think seeing that big picture, we're gonna have an awareness of what it is that we're consuming.
Right.
Also be able to have accountability because of that awareness. And by capturing that, we're then able to go back and reflect on that if we need to make changes.
Right, so awareness, reflection, and accountability.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then our next small change that we'd make, once that we have taken pictures and written things down and we want to be a little bit more proactive, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at our plate and we're gonna portion it out. So one meal at a time, most plates are circular. All you need to do is split it into thirds or half and then quarters, depending on your goal. If your goal is weight maintenance, weight gain, or weight loss, and you're going to put different food groups into those little sections. So for example, if we're cutting a plate into thirds, nice even thirds, like 3 pieces of pizza and an entire pie, the way we like to eat it, you're going to use, one of those portions is going to be your lean protein, and it doesn't matter if your lean protein is animal-based or plant-based, we're just gonna use that right there as your protein portion. We're going to use the other section as your starch portion or your fruit portion. And the last portion that we're going to section out is going to be vegetables. So nice leafy greens, the stuff that really brings color and pop to your plate. And that's as detailed and as specific as it needs to get at this level, right? We're just taking that plate, we're making sure that we are balancing out that meal. You're gonna sprinkle it with something that has some nice healthy fat in that, whether it's avocados or nuts or seeds, whatever your preference is, right? Because this is personalized, right. But we're just gonna look at that plate.
So would you say that is the thoughtful part of the process or the mindful part of the process?
Well, definitely, because what you're doing now is you're actually thinking ahead of time and putting it on your plate as opposed to just eating whatever you want. You actually have to put some thought into it.
Where the approach starts to become proactive.
Right, it becomes proactive. And depending on the way that you section off that plate, whether or not it's a half and 2 quarters or whether or not it's thirds, you're also personalizing that approach because now you're actually eating a little bit more specifically toward your goals. So once we have that, right, and once that is something that is relatively intuitive for us and it no longer creates any tension or fear, the next step that you want to take is actually then titrating down a little bit and looking at the portions of those specific foods. We're not getting super specific yet, but what we're gonna do then is we're gonna start looking at portion size from a visual standpoint. One of the easiest things you can do is to use your own hand. And there are lots of different ways to do this, but very simply, whether or not you're gonna have 2 fist-sized portions of your protein, 1 fist-sized portion of your protein, that's gonna be specific to your particular body size and your goal. You're gonna do the same things with your starches, with your fruits, with your thumb. Some people use palm size. Whatever visual you choose, the important thing is that you are consistent across each meal and each day.
So I would probably call that specificity.
Okay.
So by controlling the portions, that specificity is portion control with our goals in mind. So obviously bigger portions, more of them, should we want to be gaining weight, adding muscle mass,
Right.
or smaller portions as we want to be losing weight.
Right. And this is also where the differences between men and women come into play. It's a really, really simple way. It is also a really easy way for you to gauge what you're eating when you're not in your house.
So if we look at it from this, we could come back to that phase being your quantity phase.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And the step you previously mentioned, where we portion off our plate and put thoughtful things on it, being our quality phase.
So just to recap, before we get down to the bottom of our funnel, at the very top we have the visual food diary or the written food log, which is awareness and self-reflection. Beneath that, we have our balanced portion plate, which is indicative of thoughtfulness
And of quality.
and of quality. From there, we're moving on to our visual portion sizes, which is specificity and quantity. Right? And then we get down to the one that everyone jumps to first, which is weighing, measuring, and then tracking. And that allows us to titrate. So the great thing about weighing and measuring and tracking, while some people might find that to be a little bit neurotic, is that it allows for the most specificity for you to guide your nutrition so that the end result brings you closer to your goals. This is where your performance-based nutrition is going to come into play. Depending on the type of sport that you do, you're going to need more of one macronutrient as opposed to the other.
And it's going to give you the most pinpoint accuracy.
Right. It gives you lots of data to cull from so you can make assessments and reassess as you continue along your journey.
It also allows some degree of flexibility because then you get to a point, if you're weighing, measuring, and tracking, that you learn how to make equivalent substitutions.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like budgeting.
Exactly.
So remember, if you are new to this entire process, you don't have to start at the very bottom with the weighing and the measuring. The same way, if you walk into the gym for the first time, we're not gonna throw 315 on the bar and ask you to back squat it. We're gonna teach you how to do it. When it comes to being aware of what you're eating, making a conscious effort to control and to moderate what you're eating, whether it be upwards or downwards, start easy first. Start at the very beginning, and as you become more comfortable, you're going to layer in all of those additional steps. So remember, you are a novice, start at the beginning, don't jump ahead, and be patient.
For more nutrition videos, click here.